Hi everyone! I've noticed a couple of people asking about sewing in their ends, and someone specifically was asking about, well, how do you do it with C-to-C stitch because the stitches are running in different directions. And so I thought I would just show my method, which is probably what a lot of people do. For me, I like to use, it's a little harder to work with because it's kind of a pain to thread, but I like to use a needle with a really more of a sharp tip to it. And this particular needle is a bent tip needle, but you don't have to use bent tip needles. I have these because I like to make a lot of stuffed toys, and these needles can be easier for those pieces, but it doesn't have to be bent tip for a blanket. The only other needle I have that's not a bent tip is this one, and it's really nice because it has a huge eye and it's really easy to thread. But the tip is really wide and pretty blunt, and so I don't feel like I sew my ends in as securely when I use this type of needle. So I like a sharp needle, and basically, let's see, it kind of depends where you are. I sort of look to see if I like to try to keep the tail within the same color. So here you can see these are some double crochet stitches. So I'm going to weave my tail through those stitches. And something I try to do, and I don't know how well that's going to come across on the camera, but I actually try to poke through the yarn fibers. I don't try, that's what, and this is why I like this sharp needle, because the blunt needle wants to just kind of go behind the stitches. I actually try to penetrate through the fibers, and so I'll pull. And then I don't pull too tight because I don't want to distort my stitches. So now I'm here and I don't have one of those places with the 3 double crochets to work into, but that's fine because it's good to penetrate through the yarn. So like I want to come here, that's just what I want to do. I try to change directions often. So I'll just work kind of through the middle of this 1 double crochet stitch. And again, I try to just, I hope you can see that I'm trying to like actually poke through some of the yarn fibers of the stitch. And I'll even poke into this kind of thing down here that the double crochet is wrapped around. And again, don't pull too tight. So then I think I want to go this way because I have some double crochet stitches to work into. So again, I try to just actually work through, like splitting the fibers of the stitch and not just going behind it. And then I'm going to go up this double crochet stitch so I can get into this section here. When I do this, it's not like an exact science and it doesn't happen all the time, so it's not a big deal. But like this is my tail. If I can, if it's possible, I try to poke that actual yarn tail on my way up through that stitch because I feel like it just makes things more secure. And then again, I'll go through here and try to go through some of the actual yarn fibers and not just behind the stitch. And so that's probably enough, so I'm going to just go back down several more times. And again, this is another place where I'm going to try to poke this tail. So I like to go around something just so I don't end up working in the off chance that I go exactly the same way I went up. I don't want to pull out my stitching. So like I'll go around that so that doesn't happen. And then I'm just going to try to poke my actual yarn tail, poke through these stitches, poke through that strand there. And you can go in a different direction, like I didn't go this way last time, but I'll come through these stitches. Again, trying to penetrate the yarn fibers as much as I can and not just going behind them. And then I'll go back. So I'm just going to kind of loop around something in here, penetrate my yarn tail, and poke up over here, and then come back down through this double crochet stitch here, just trying to, you know, pierce through the fibers as much as I can. And you can kind of feel when you're doing that there'll be some resistance. And so I want to just turn and go this way. So I'll just maybe come around this part of the stitch here, pierce through my tail again, come through here, pierce through this piece right here, and I'll maybe just go up here one more time. And there you have it. So don't pull too tightly when you do your stitching. And then I like to use a sharp needle because if you didn't notice, I think I said a lot. I really just try to pierce through the yarn fibers as much as possible, because I think if you just end up weaving behind the stitches, I just don't think it's as secure. If you can pierce through the yarn fibers and then pierce back through your tail on top of itself, I think it almost, in my mind, I feel like it creates some kind of a knot or something like that's just not gonna come undone. So I hope that helps.